this video that's coming up is a guy named David Pakman. I just wanted to play this video because I think this right here symbolizes the belief of a lot of people in this country right now, where they feel as though their opinions matter more than everyone else's. So I'm gonna let this video play. It's a short one, so once it's done, I'll give my opinion.
Back when I was on Twitter, he's a big MAGA guy, but hey, I love this. I'm going to play a video clip for you of a guy that, quite frankly, I don't have a great relationship with. It's a CNBC host named Joe Kernan. Joe Kernan has previously attacked me on Twitter, back when I was on Twitter. He's a big MAGA guy, but I have to give him credit. Sometimes he gets it right. And Joe Kernan and the whole crew over at CNBC was interviewing Kevin McCarthy, the former Republican Speaker of the House. And Joe Kernan gets something right, which is, a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump is proposing to do economically, the tax cuts, the tariffs, this is all pro-inflation. This is all inflationary. And Kevin McCarthy was confronted with that. And I have many criticisms of Joe Kernan. The way he recently flipped out on Anthony Scaramucci seemed completely inappropriate and out of line. And when he deserves criticism, I criticize him. But he really gets this right here. Take a listen to what he had to say. This is a MAGA guy acknowledging basic economics tells you what Trump plans to do. He is going to be inflation man before you know it.
You think that with all these different cross currents that were, tariffs were announced, or on day one, he's going to try and do some of these things.
Yeah, but did you read what he announced and why? I think this is very important.
Yeah, with immigration and fentanyl and
immigration and fentanyl.
I got it.
So what are you saying?
But with all these, I'm just wondering, and with, and Scott Bessent said he's going to get the tax cuts extended and do the tax on tips, do all this thing. Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market? And wouldn't you? I'm surprised the bond market it's very strange. The 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this.
Joe Kernan is right. Doesn't even matter what Kevin McCarthy says. Joe Kernan is actually unable to get around the reality that this is the effect that it would have. All of these policies, and there's actually more, I'll even tell you in a moment. When Donald Trump tariffs China, Mexico, and Canada, things get more expensive here. That drives inflation. When Trump extends or generates new tax cuts, and this is one of those cases where I'm a beneficiary of what's called QBID, the Qualified Business Income Deduction. This is a deduction for certain types of businesses that Trump put in place. I benefit from it. I don't want to send Trump's cabinet any more money to do stuff with than I have to. I would much rather keep the tax cut and not send RFK more money to push ivermectin smoothies and raw milk with.
Look at this cuck right here, boy, I swear. All right, so you got a problem with giving money to the Trump campaign or whatever your biased ass reasons are, but you have a problem with giving money to the Trump campaign. Well, the one thing is you're not giving money to the Trump campaign. These are taxes. So you can either pay your fucking taxes or you can shut the fuck up and go to jail. That's just how that goes. Now, you say you would much rather keep the tax cut. You would much rather get rid of the tax cuts and then you would just rather pay your taxes. That's cool. But the thing is, like, with these tax cuts, the money that you're getting is not just supposed to go into your pocket. This was money that you were supposed to reinvest into your business, hire more people. That's the thing. Like, it's entitled ass people like you who feel as though, oh, the government's giving me a kickback, I must have done a great job. No, the government was giving you a kickback so you can hire more people, employ more people, and thus produce more in America. But your selfish ass feeling like everything is for you, you keep the money. That's what you would do. You keep the money. You feel as though you've already paid enough in your taxes that you don't need to pay more. But it's amazing that you are perfectly fine with saying that you don't want to for RFK to be handing out ivermectin smoothies, but you were perfectly well with Anthony Fauci juicing people up with cocktails. It's amazing. Like, the hypocrisy is weird. Like, you're on one hand, you are perfectly okay with a person who creates viruses, who's getting money, and then lying about giving money to other organizations that create viruses and different types of microorganisms. You're okay with that. As a matter of fact, we are okay with him getting a pardon. That is perfectly fine. But when we have a person that is trying to be more for America, try to get us to have the same foods that they have over in Paris, over in England, over in Australia, the same type of foods that they have, that's what we want here. We don't want to have Fruit Loops that got red 40, yellow 5, blue 10, and all these fucking different numbers. What do they use over there? If I'm not mistaken, to get the color red, they use beet juice. I mean, that seems logical. Might not be as bright red as you want, but guess what? It'll be healthier. Now, like I say, if you want to just go around drinking your soy lattes and your wheatgrass, that's cool. But one thing you don't need to do is say what everyone else should be doing or give an opinion about what everything should be like, because you are not qualified to do that. That's why you're not the president. That's why you are talking about the president. But it's perfectly okay. You do have the freedom of speech, and we're going to give you that. I'd like for you to talk a little bit more, though.
But the truth is, it's not something that we can say is awesome for the economy to give me that qubit deduction. Trump's going to extend it. But there's more that's going to be inflationary that Trump will do. If Trump really starts mass deportations of undocumented migrants, they're talking about denaturalizing people. Will they do it? I don't know. But imagine they get their way.
I hope that shit happened. I mean, I've already heard about the deportations. I am happy. I am ecstatic about it. I hope they can deport motherfuckers by the busloads. I hope they can deport them just as fast as Joe Biden brought them. That is the truth. And the fact of the matter is, I know you're about to spit out this whole labor thing where if we start deporting people, then that will cause a vacuum in the employment area, which will cause people to charge more because we have to pay more and this, that, and the third. Well, guess what? If you didn't have the illegal situation going on, we would have never had the job market to fall at such a rate where even if you get a job in the job market, you can't afford to live it. You can't afford to live with it. The fact that we have illegal people in this country that are willing to work for below what our country says we should be getting paid, that is why everything is so fucking cheap at times. When you get rid of all of that illegal labor, it puts things back into the perspective that they should be. If you want to go out and have your soy latte or you want to have your Starbucks Frappuccino, that's cool. But then when you realize that you got to pay for it, it's not cool. But then also when you realize that the fact that it's so high is directly related to decisions that you and the people that you actually side with have made. The fact that the reason why a Starbucks coffee is so high is not because the coffee is expensive. The reason why it's so high is because it costs so much to pay someone to deal with your ass. That's what it is. Nobody wants to fucking work at Starbucks because there are people like you who are entitled that feel as though everything should be made for me specifically. And that's the problem. But, you got an opinion. Let's hear it.
They're talking about renewing or not renewing or eliminating temporary protected status for folks like the Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio. If you start cutting the labor force in the United States, it will drive up the price of labor, which will be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for services or goods.
Okay, that's all good. Because I knew your bunk ass was going to go there. But you want to know something? Why do we have Walgreens closing, CVS closing? Why is it that McDonald's can't even afford to pay people most of the time? Why is it that we have so many restaurants that have to close in the middle of the day because they only have one person to work? See, the problem is not the fact that there are illegal people in this country that are causing the price of whatever to be down. The problem is the fact that there are people like you in this country who feel as though they should be above everything else that is reasonable and want to go out and pay someone to do a job that at an unreasonable rate. I mean, what? You mad you won't be able to go to Home Depot and get your patio built for $50? That's what it boils down to. Like, you're going to have to actually go out there and get a quote. You have to go out there and find someone that's willing to do that deck that you want for $10, $15, $20,000. You're not going to have a cheap Mexican on your side. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, this goes with people in my family as well. I got a cousin right now that's trying to rebuild a house and he wants to use Mexicans to do it. He gets quoted by one person that's willing to do the job at a reasonable price, $50,000. This is just the roof. $50,000. He goes and finds a Mexican, $20,000. So what does he do? He goes with the Mexican. Guess what? Finds out Mexican does a job. But then he also finds out that he uses cheap parts, uses extra labor, and not to mention the fact that he's not even bonded or insured. So if something happens on the job, guess who has to pay for that? Guess who's liable at that point? But it's people like you that will get what you want in the end. You'll get your cheap labor, and you're going to end up with your consequences just like that. I mean, it's all good. What don't come out in the wash always comes out in the...
Trump's entire package, I don't want to say definitively, but every policy I've looked at would increase prices and drive inflation. Now, maybe there's something in there I haven't mentioned which would have the opposite effect, but it is inflation, man. If you tried to say, let's figure out how to raise inflation, you would say, let's make it more expensive to import stuff. Let's cut taxes in a way that won't be economically stimulative. And let's reduce the labor force by deporting tens of millions of people. And people would say, oh, yeah, that's a perfect recipe for increasing prices.
First off, we're not deporting people that should be here either. You keep leaving that point out. I mean, I love it how people like to talk about deporting people from the labor force, or deporting people, or deporting separating families. But if you stop for 1 second, they should have never been here. Should have never been here. In every definition of the word asylum, they should not have been here. Now, personally, I don't know where you live, Mr. Pakman, but if you are willing to take them into your own home and provide for them, that is perfectly fine. Please do so. But make sure you leave the rest of us up out that shit. And if anyone else in this country wants to take care of any illegal immigrants, by all means, do it. But please keep them out of our lives. That's all we got to say about that. Do what you want. Just leave me out of it.
So good for Joe Kernan. I mean, he's still a MAGA supporter. He's not a Kamala guy, but he is bringing up something that anyone with a...
I can't believe this motherfucker said that. You are the type of person that votes for Kamala Harris. I mean, I would love to know your reasoning. I mean, obviously you cannot have a good reason other than the fact that you hate Trump. What policies did she put forth that you agree with? I mean, I might be waiting on that forever, but I would love to know, what policies did she put forth that you agree with? What about this woman makes you want to vote her as the leader of our country? What about her track record and her career makes it where she's a standout presidential candidate? I don't get it. I mean, honestly, Joe Biden was better than her, and he sucked. So what do you see? And honestly, I think all he sees is a racial situation. He thinks that she's black, so thus she is. And he feels as though he's so guilty about his own skin color that he feels as though, oh, I have to vote for the black woman. I can't vote the white man in. I have to vote for the black woman. Well, guess what? I'm black. I don't know if you can tell that shit yet, but I'm black. And ain't no way in hell I would have voted for her. At all. No way in hell. I have supported Trump since he first since he first descended the escalator. I've supported him on his presidential runs. Before he ran, my son and I, we watched The Apprentice every time it came on. Donald Trump is probably one of the greatest icons up in this country. And for you people to be disrespectful enough I can't even say what you're disrespectful to do. You're just disrespectful. But for you to sit there and use your emotions and your social issues to try to paint this man in a way that he has not portrayed, it is completely disingenuous. And the fact that you all put Joe Biden on a pedestal, but you don't hold him accountable for any of the actions that he's committed over the past 4 years, let alone his entire career, it's laughable. It is completely laughable. So I really hope that you all find a way to become a little bit more genuine with your beliefs. I just hope you all grow up, son. I really do. I don't know, maybe you said something smarter a little bit later on in this video. I didn't stick around. Let me see.
Passing minimal understanding of economics would say that is a recipe for inflation. Who do you think will get blamed if it happens? I don't know. I'm not asking rhetorically. I don't know. It would be right to blame Trump. This is like one of those very basic logic questions. If Trump's policies increase inflation, the blame should be placed on fill in the blank.
If Trump's policies increase inflation, they should be placed on Trump. The blame should be placed on Trump. But here's the caveat. Inflation increased up under Joe Biden, but people blame Trump. Immigration increased up under Joe Biden, but people blame Trump policies. So you need to take your own advice and fill in that blank. And when you fill in that blank, you need to remember what you say. Remember what you say, because, you know, it's people like us that actually sit here and we watch what you say. So when you say something and it doesn't agree with what you previously said, we're going to point it out. So, like I say, who should be to blame? If immigration increases up under Joe Biden, who should be blamed? If black people were put more at a disadvantage up under Obama, who should we blame? And if black people increase financially more up under Donald Trump, who gets that benefit? You arguing a one-sided argument when you actually have a net worth that can possibly be looked up. It makes a big difference. Having a net worth actually changes your opinion. When you can't look up your net worth, believe me, you don't worry about what another motherfucker got up in another country. That's not a concern of mine. I could give two shits about the price of rice and tea in China, especially when the price of eggs in America is way more than both of them. Get your shit straight.